The Fisherman and His Wife. I guess we all know the story of this greedy woman. And it was written down by the Grimm brothers, and the original language was Low German. And in their first edition, they printed it in Low German, but then transformed it into High German, and then it was translated to English, of course. Hello, my name is Jadwiga. Welcome to my fairy tale channel and listen to this nice old story. Once upon a time, there was a fisher and his wife, and they lived in a filthy hovel. And every day, the fisherman went out to the sea to, to go fishing. And there he was sitting and waiting and sitting and waiting, and so he did that every day, but on this day, something was different because he felt this was a really big fish on his rod. And when he pulled it out and just wanted to kill it because he thought, that might make a nice dinner for my wife and me, the fish started to talk. And the fish said, "Oh, dear fisherman, please let me live because I'm not very tasty. And in fact, I am a, a haunted prince. So please let me swim." And the fisherman, he never had met a speaking fish. He said, "Oh, I couldn't kill a speaking fish, so of course I let you swim." And he put him back into the water, and the flounder just swam away. Then he returned back home, and his wife asked, "Haven't you got any fish today?" And the fisherman told her what had happened. And his wife said, "Well, and what have you asked for?" What should I have asked for?" "Well, you saved his life, so he should have given you something for that instead." "Oh, what should I have wished for?" said the man. "Well, for example, you could have asked him to give us a nice little house and not this filthy old hovel here. So go down to the sea and ask him and tell him we want a nice little cottage." The fisherman did not want to go, and he argued and said, "Oh no, he won't be able to do that." And his wife said, "He will, I know. So go down to the sea and ask for a nice little cottage." The fisherman felt it wasn't right, but he went to the sea, and the sea was quite calm, and he called out, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, my dear wife, the Ilsebill, what she wants is not my will." And the flounder showed up and said, "What does she want?" "Sorry, she wants a cottage." "Oh, go home. She's already sitting in front of it on a bench." And when he returned back home, instead of this filthy old hovel, there was a nice little cottage, and his wife was sitting on a bench in front of the house. And she took his hand, and they went inside, and everything was so nice and so neat and perfectly furnished. And the kitchen was filled with all kinds of stuff you would need, and with the best tools and pots, um, and the pantry was filled. So everything was really, really nice. And behind the cottage, there was a little stable for the chicken and the ducks. And on the other side, there was a vegetable garden with veggies and fruit trees, and everything was so nice. And the fisherman said, "Oh, this is good. This is good. Thank you. And now we won't have any more wishes." "Well, we see," said his wife. And they enjoyed this beautiful cottage for quite a while. And then one day she said, "Listen, this cottage here, this is for poor people. I want to live in a castle." "You want what?" "I want to live in a castle because that's where I belong to, into a castle, not into this little cottage." So go down to the sea and ask your fish to create us a nice castle. No, no, that's not right, said the fisherman. No, 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 I won't do that. You will, said his wife. You are my husband and you have to go down because I want to live in a castle. Poof, he went. He went down to the sea, and this time the sea was not as nice and blue anymore. It was more violet and gray. And when the fisherman stood there shouting out, Flounder, flounder in the sea, my dear wife, the Isabel, does not want what she wants is not my will. And the flounder showed up and said, What does she want? She wants to live in a castle. Oh, go home. She's already there. And really, when the fisherman came home, instead of that cottage, there stood a huge castle out of bricks and stone, and it looked very, very nice. And when he came towards the castle, two servants opened the doors and let him in, and his wife was there, and yeah, she enjoyed that beautiful castle with the nice carpets and precious tapestry and um, these beautiful lamps hanging from the ceiling. And she took him by the hand and showed him everything. And he said, Wow, this is really amazing. This is nice. I like that. So now we are happy, and now we don't want to wish anything more. Oh, we shall see, said his wife. And really, after a while, she said to her husband, I want to be king. Go down to the sea and tell your fish that we want to be king. You and me, we want to be king. No, said the fisherman, I don't want to be king. No, no, for sure not. Well, but I want to be king, said the wife. So go down to your flounder and tell her. I don't think the fish is able to do that. Of course he is, she said. So go down and tell him, at least I want to be king if you don't want to. This is not right, thought the fisherman. This is not right, but he went down to the sea. And again, this time the sea was gray and there was a harsh wind blowing. And when he stood there and shouted out, Flounder, flounder in the sea, my dear wife, the Ilsebill, her wish is not what I will. Well, what does she want? Asked the flounder. She wants to be king. Oh, go home. She is already. And really, when he came home, the castle had become much bigger and more beautiful, and there were lots more servants, and the furniture was even more precious. And his wife was sitting on a throne. And he looked at her and he said, Wow, wife, you are king. Wow, I like that. You see, she said. And then they went to bed. And a couple of days later, she said to her husband, Listen, a king is not very powerful. I want to be emperor because an emperor has much more power than a king. So go down to your fish and tell him I want to be emperor. No, 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 he said, he cannot do that. I'm pretty sure he's not able to do that. Well, said his wife, when he can make me king, he can make me emperor as well. Where's the problem? So go down and tell him. And no, I don't want to. This is not right. It doesn't feel right. We shouldn't do that. Husband, I am the king. And I tell you to go down to the sea and tell that fish that I want to be emperor. He went down He felt very uncomfortable. But again, when he came to the water, ooh, this time it was already much darker and the waves were higher and it was the water was violet and green and ugly. And when he shouted out, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, my dear wife, the Ilsebill, her wish is not what I will." And the flounder said, "What does she want?" "She wants to be emperor." "Oh, go home, she is already," said the flounder. And really, when the fisherman came home, the castle was made from polished marble. And there were many, many more servants. And wherever he walked, the carpets were so thick and the furniture was from gold. And there were kings and lords and dukes and all kind of very important and mighty people. And they were there. And his wife was sitting on a throne that was at least 3 meters high. And she was sitting there and she looked quite proudly and satisfied. And her husband stood in front of her and said, "Wow, you are emperor. Really? That's great. That's really amazing. But now we are happy, aren't we?" "We shall see," she said. And as you probably already know, it doesn't take long when she wakes up her husband in the morning and says, "Listen, I want to be Pope." He was frightened and said, "No, no, there is only one Pope in the world and he cannot make you that. This is impossible." "I know your fish can do that. So I want to be Pope and you go down because I am the emperor and you are my husband. You go down to the sea and tell him I want to be Pope." The fisherman tried to argue for a little while, but you know already he had no chance. So he went down, and this time the sea was really stormy and high waves were throwing on the beach. And the fisherman, he didn't feel comfortable. He thought it was not right to go down there, but he had to. So he called out, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, my dear wife, the Ilsebill. What she wants is not my will." "What does she want?" asked the flounder. "Really, she wants to be Pope." "Oh, go home. She is already." And really, when the fisherman came home, there was not only their original castle, there were many beautiful and precious buildings around. And the inside of the castle, there were all the kings and emperors from the whole world, and they were kneeling down and kissing the feet of his wife, who was sitting on a throne that was 8 meters high. And all the servants around, and all these beautiful and precious and rich things she enjoyed, and they gathered around her. She was really happy. And when the fisherman came and saw his wife sitting up there on this high throne, he could hardly see her. He said, "Wow, you're a pope. You even have this cap on your head. Wow, that's really great. Now you have reached the highest job you can have on earth. Now, this is the end of your wishes." "Huh? We shall see," she said. And she still was not really satisfied. She still thought of what she could be more, what else she could wish for, what else she needed, what she wanted, what would make her even mightier and greater and happier than she was. And the next morning, she had not slept because this was all going around in her head. And she woke up and she saw through the window, she saw the sun rising. And she said, that's it. That's it. There is only God who can make the sun rise and go down, but I want to be like God. I want to tell the sun to rise, and I want to tell the moon to rise, and I want to tell them to go down again. This is what I want. I want to be like God. And she pushed her husband, woke him up and said, I want to be like God. Go down to your fish and tell him. The husband was deeply frightened, and he said, no, no, this is not possible, and the fish cannot do that, and it's not right, and we shouldn't do that. Just be happy to be No, said his wife. This is my order. You are my husband. You go down to the sea, and you tell the fish that I want to be like God. The fisherman did not feel well. No, he felt very, very uncomfortable. But he went down to the sea, and this time it was stormy, and thunder and lightning were there, and the waves as high as he had never seen them before. And he could hardly hear his own voice when he shouted out, Flounder, flounder in the sea, my dear wife, the Ilsebill, what she wants is not my will. And the fish came up and said, what does she want now? She wants to be like God. Go home. She's already sitting in her filthy hovel where she had started from. And when he came home, all the castles, all these beautiful, splendid buildings had disappeared. Even the cottage had disappeared. And his wife was sitting in the old filthy hovel where they still live today. Doesn't that sound a bit familiar to us? People who never can get enough, people who always want more and more and more. And the interesting thing in that story is first she just wants a better house or a castle to live in. But then she finds out it's power. It's not wealth of living in a castle. That's not enough. No, she wants power. She wants to be king. But then she realizes there are people even more powerful and mighty than a king. And she wants to be emperor and pope. And never, ever gets enough. Never, ever says, well, now my wishes are fulfilled. This is what I wanted. Thank you. She never says thank you. This is what she completely forgets. And well, this sounds very familiar. We all know people in public, in politics, or in social life who always want more and more, and you never hear that they would say, I have enough now. Maybe when they're old and weak, they retire. But as long as they're in the power of their lives, they want more. They need more. And there is no, oh, thank you, it's enough. And actually, we ourselves, we also know that feeling of, oh, I would be happy if I only had this or that. And then we have this or that. And for a little moment, we feel happy just to realize this happiness dissolves and there are more wishes coming up. And we think when these wishes come true, then we will be happy. But that never happens, because the big misunderstanding is that we do not find happiness in the outer world. Money or power or a beautiful house or a quick car or a good job or whatever can never make us really happy, because happiness comes from inside. And well, I'm not so familiar with the Bible, but I remember Jesus saying when he did his miracles, and people said, "Wow, this is amazing what you do." And he said, "You all can do the same as me and even more." So, but this, he did not mean you can have lots of money or be emperor or pope. He meant that the love he gave and the healing he gave and the peace, the inner peace he had, and that spread out to the people, that we can have this or give that, but have it and give it, because receiving and giving is the same. Now, this husband, he knows it's not right what his wife wants, but he always goes down to the sea and asks the flounder for the new wishes. And when he comes home and sees what his wife has gained, wow, he's impressed. He likes that too. But then he thinks, that's enough now. But what kind of a man is that who does not have the power to say, stop, I don't want that. It's not right. I don't do that. And if you want that, you can go down to the sea and ask him, and maybe he fulfills your wish. But I am not no longer your servant in this case. He's weak. He does not have the courage and the back to rise up and say no. And this is what sometimes happens with children. We need to set them boundaries. They need a no, stop. Otherwise, they will go on and go on and go on and test. They test us how far they can go. Yeah, maybe his wife is a little bit like an anti-authority to raised child. You know what I mean? We had these years when people thought, no, children should have no boundaries. They should be allowed to do whatever they want, and nobody should ever say, stop it. This ended up in a catastrophe. Yeah, we have learned from that. So I hope you liked this little story. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you soon for my next story. And goodbye.